Oh, welcome in the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bradden. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter, and I'm joined as always by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Vols on Twitter. What are you up to, you big Tennessee homer?
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Oh, man, I'll tell you what. We have officially hit that point of the calendar. Shane, spring football's done. Transfer portal, more or less done. We got basically nothing to talk about. So thank you once again to all the fans on the call-in line, Shane. Let me give that out to you one more time. 615-965-5152. We'll put that in the show notes as well. But, man, these fans keep coming through, Shane, and without them, we wouldn't even be doing this show today. You know what?
Well, that's the truth, you know. Before the hotline, it's so funny because it's kind of weird, man. I'm going to be honest with you. When we start, sometimes I feel like it's just me and you, you know, and then we'll see somebody or we'll talk to somebody on Twitter and you're like, oh, shit, yeah, somebody is listening to this, you know. The hotline has totally changed my outlook, brother. I'm telling you what, it's been we can't get to them all. We can't. I thought, hey, we'd have one or two and maybe the same caller, Half of them are family members, just wondering, disguising their voice and asking a question about Arkansas or something. But no, brother, this has been a fantastic outpouring, and I cannot wait to see it in the season, because that's why I like it. I love this hotline. Don't get me wrong, for the content that we're able to put here in the list season and we're kind of in the dog days here, but during the season, when your team just pulls off a freaking upset, I want you guys to save that phone number and have it ready because I want to feel it, man. If your team just pulled off an upset, like my Tennessee Vols against Alabama last year, I would have called that hotline. I mean, it was so awesome to jump on and talk to the fans and everything, but if your team pulled off the upset, if you're a big LSU fan and you got that big upset right there in the Death Valley, I mean, that's when I want to get on the horn. I want to call the hotline, and I'm going to let that SEC podcast and the cousins know just how tremendous that victory was. But on the flip side of the coin, if you're a Bama fan, you lost 2 of these damn games, you may want to get on here and say, fire that damn offensive coordinator, So that's the cool thing about this hotline. So be sure to save it. You don't have to call it now. We definitely do appreciate all the messages. We're trying to get to all of them. We're not going to be able to, but you got a show topic or you just want a suggestion or something like that. Give us a buzz, man. We're gonna play it, and this is a fan-run podcast. So your information, the stuff you guys want, is the stuff we're gonna go over. So yeah, yep. Fantastic, man.
Hey, and one quick note, Shane. Whenever I make a mistake, I like to bring it up just to let everybody know how many mistakes I make. But we did have, we've been piling on the Gators. I said on the last episode, South Carolina, last team to beat Georgia. I thought I said in Athens, but I think I just said last East team to beat Georgia. It was actually Florida during the COVID season. Dan Bolin, baby. I mean, they beat them, the Georgia Bulldogs, but that's about all they've got to hang their hat on here lately. You know what?
That was the last good victory, wasn't it? Wasn't it? It was the last good one. I wish I could say that. I mean, in the recent years beating Georgia, we've not been able to do it. So, yeah, no, this is so this was COVID. I'm trying to remember that game. Was it in Florida or was it in Georgia?
Oh, it's always in Jacksonville. So
shit. Even during COVID, it was. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So going back, because I'm trying to remember, COVID's kind of a blur to me. Mm-hmm. Were we allowing fans in at this point, or are we still at the 25% rule?
I think it was the 25% rule. The only thing I remember from it, Shane, was the wheel route. Florida killed Georgia on the wheel route. And I think one of Georgia's receivers got really badly injured in that game, unfortunately. I remember that. But that was just a high-flying offense, Shane. I mean, hell, hardly anybody could slow it down except that that fog down there when they were playing. I think the game was at home, but it was. Remember LSU upset them. That's another thing I remember right before the SEC championship.
The shoe toss. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, yeah, there were some wild games that year. I probably should sit down and redo the COVID. It was just such a wild time, you know. So much has happened since then. It's just for some reason it's kind of a fog, pun intended, you know.
Well, let's get to our first question, Shane. This comes from cousin Stu. He's a Tennessee fan from Chattanooga, but he's got some of that Negavol in him. Let's kick it over to Stu.
Hey, buddy. Mike, Shane. Great show. Love listening. This is Stu from Chattanooga, living in Virginia now. Go Big Orange. I've been rewatching all the games from last year for the Vols, and I got to say, I love our running backs. I think our defense is going to be improved. I just don't think that we win 10 games this year. Maybe it's the battered ball syndrome coming out, but rewatching some of the throws that Joe Milton makes, it's just not perfectly placed in the breadbasket like Hendon could do. I think that's going to come bite us in the ass a bit in some of these games. Tell me I'm not just being a Negavol. Tell me I'm wrong, but I just want to let you know that I don't think all the Vols are pumped up about next year. I'm hoping I'm wrong. Hope you crack a cold one and listen to this.
All right, Shane, and I also wanted to rope this into another one. We've had a really big fan who just reaches out on Twitter. His name's Glock Vols. He's asked us for realistic expectations for the Vols for the next 3 years. So I kind of thought we'd kind of rope all this together. But Stu, back to Stu's question, doesn't know if Tennessee can win 10 games next year. Not completely sold on Joe Milton. And, you know, I'm not either, Shane. But when I say I'm not completely sold on him, now let's be careful here, Shane, because anytime you say something like that, people think you're a hater and you think that, you know, he's garbage and all that. I'm just saying he's not Hendon Hooker. And we got to put that into perspective. I think with Josh Heupel's system and the players they've got, they will be efficient on offense. I think Joe Milton will put up some nice yards. He'll score a ton. You know, I think he'll have a good season, maybe even a really good season, depending on if you're just looking at stats. But I just don't know if he'll be the difference maker against teams like Alabama, Georgia, maybe Texas A&M, on the road at Florida. I mean, these are some big obstacles, and we haven't even gotten to Kentucky and South Carolina. But back to Stu's question, Shane. He said he's got some of that Negavol in him. They're afraid to go revert. You know, Tennessee for years and years, Shane. Expectations, they don't meet them. But it just, to me, Shane, it just feels different under Josh Heupel. I mean, we've done away with all that. This team rises to the occasion. Again, I continue to say it, and I feel like people that don't follow Tennessee closely are just looking at that South Carolina game from last year. But the defense continues to get better, man. And they have really attacked that in recruiting. I mean, they're adding 5-star linemen. They're adding 5-star linebackers, elite 4-stars at both positions. I think that front seven for Tennessee is going to be really good. They've added a ton of freshman defensive backs, some transfers. I mean, I think defense is going to win them multiple games next year, Shane, in the SEC. So you throw that all together. You know, the way I'm looking at it, Shane, there's only 2 games that I think Tennessee are going to be big underdogs, and that's Alabama and Georgia. And, hell, they knocked one off last year. That's not to say they're going to beat every other team on their schedule, but I think they've got a better than 50% shot to beat everybody else on their schedule. So I don't think it's unrealistic at all to say Tennessee can win 10 games. What do you think?
You know, I guess going to the Negavol, I mean, it's hard, man. How can you not be a little bit doubtful when you've gone through 20 years of just terrible football? I mean, we've had little flare-ups here, a decent season here. We get our hopes up, and then it gets ripped from us. I'll never forget that Butch Jones year. It just felt like, when we beat beat Georgia. We almost we beat the Gators back to back. Then we go down there Texas A&M, and it just felt like it was a perfect season, like it was meant for Tennessee. But then part of you is like, man, we're just going to keep building this thing. We got a long way to go. We're on our way up, and then all of a sudden it just collapsed. And so it's hard, man. I get it. I am also one of those. My biggest fear is that Milton isn't legit. I don't. I like him. I think he's got a great arm. I think he really showed me a lot during that Clemson game. When the lights were on, I was like, can he do this? Yeah. I mean, big stage. He was able to single-handedly keep Tennessee's offense moving. And I think that's your concern when you're thinking of Heupel's offense is the avoidance of 3-and-outs. Especially last year, the defense was thin. We really got exposed toward the end of the season there. And the beautiful thing about Hendon Hooker was he was able to keep those chains moving, sometimes through his legs, sometimes just amazing passes on third down. His third down efficiency was amazing at times. Big player and big time. And Joe has had opportunities in the past, and he's hurt us. So there's that negative all creeping in. You think of Milton, you think of, he's been chasing his job in Michigan. He comes down here, he loses his job to Hendon Hooker. He's always looking over his shoulder, and I thought coming into the season that, hey, he has nothing to worry about, but what's the storyline? Well, is the freshman going to play? Does Joe get a little nervous out there? It feels like it's a psychological thing for him, and I hope to God he's not listening to this podcast. Surely he's not. Cut off all social. If you're listening, Joe, hang up now and just focus on your art and don't listen to us talking heads, because we need him out there dialed in and doing everything he can to stretch his field and run this Heupel offense to the best of his ability. Does he have the tangible pieces to do it? Absolutely. Can Tennessee win 10 games? Absolutely, man. How can you say they couldn't? Their defense is improved. Their defense is better. Now, there's some question marks on that offensive line. There's some question marks with the wide receivers. I get that, but I have no doubt in my mind that we're going to find yards. We're going to find touchdowns. We're going to find scores with that offense. And the defense is going to help us stay in some of these ball games. But it's only going to go as far as Joe Milton goes. So I guess your confidence level really hinges on that. And how confident are you? I'm 50-50, Mike. Dream world, I think we're winning a natty. But, that negative all in me is just right there with you. Like, I pray to God this thing doesn't implode this year.
Yep. And one thing I think is being overlooked too, Shane, with the recent rule changes, remember, clock's no longer going to stop on first downs in college football outside of the final 2 minutes of each half. And I don't know that it'll make a huge impact, but I do think it will make an impact for Tennessee specifically, Shane, and Ole Miss and Auburn, which is going to run a similar up-tempo style of offense. But when you're running that tempo with the clock not stopping, that's going to obviously result in more clock eaten up by the offense, which is going to be good for Tennessee's defense because they're going to face less snaps on their side of the football. Again, I don't know if that'll be a major impact, but if they're facing 8 to 10 less snaps a game, that's going to help by the end of the season. So I don't think that can be overlooked either. But let's get to Glock Vol here, Shane. He wants to know 3-year outlook for Tennessee. And just based on what we've seen, Shane, under Josh Heupel, I mean, he's one of, if not the best offensive mind in college football right now. He's at the very top with adding Nico at quarterback. I think if he lives up to the hype, I don't know if you saw this the other day, Shay, but on 3, they put out a graphic of the highest rated quarterbacks in the history of the recruiting industry, and I believe Nico was number 6, not of this year, but of all time. So I mean, these are the accolades that are coming with this kid. If he lives up to that hype, man, Shane, I don't think sitting here, the rest of the SEC's already turned it off. But I would not say it's national championship or bust. But I think SEC championship, again, maybe not or bust because it's such a competitive league, but to get the next 3 years, I think Tennessee can win an SEC championship, but I don't think they're recruiting quite to the level, in fact, I know they're not, of Georgia and Alabama and even Ohio State, LSU. So Nico, an elite quarterback, any elite quarterback can close that gap. I mean, there's a reason Marcus Mariota took Oregon to the national championship game. There's a reason Jimbo won a national championship with Jameis Winston.
Right.
Joe Burrow, LSU. I mean, there's many examples. An elite quarterback can be the difference to get you there. But if they hit on Nico, I think it's very reasonable for Tennessee fans to expect within the next 3 years to be in that SEC championship game. Is that unrealistic, do you think?
No, it's all about momentum, man, and that's what I'm thinking. This is a pivotal year for the Volunteers because they have that momentum, not only in just their style, but the fans, the fan support, the money. Mike hit on this the other day. When you're thinking 3 years down the road, the big factors for competing for an SEC championship or a college football playoff run is freaking money. And there is a ton of it coming in, and there's going to be more of it when you keep putting a nice product on the field. And that's the key, brother. Hammer down. Keep that foot on the gas and just keep hammering through this and keep landing those recruits. Nico would not have come to Tennessee if it were 4 years ago. Nico would not have come to Tennessee if we weren't able to put together a nice NIL package for him. I mean, say what you want. I mean, the kid came out here and he made a shit ton of money. He's making a fortune there in Knoxville, and he's going to continue to do that. And, and if the 24/7s are right out there, we landed us a hell of a quarterback, and that's how you build national championship teams. And in this style of offense that Heupel likes to run, it's just a piece that we can build around. So when I'm thinking 3 years out, you're going to see little pieces. Nico may play this year. I'm not saying that he won't. But there's going to be little glimpse of what's to come in Knoxville, and that's what you're selling on the recruiting trail is that, hey, we're just missing a few pieces here. We get that in here, we're recruiting just like Georgia. We're going to be recruiting just like Alabama, and then we're going to be competing for national championships. So you just got to keep going. That's the key, Mike. You can't take your foot off because then all of a sudden it becomes a fire sale, and people start transferring out, and you're like, oh, shit, here we go. It's Butch Jones 2.0, So, yes, I think the key is just keep going, and I think Heupel is going to do that.
Yeah. All right, Shane, next question comes from Cousin Chase from Arkansas, big Razorback fan, of course, and he's got a couple of questions on the Razorbacks and their depth heading into this upcoming season.
Hey, this is Chase from Arkansas. I'm a huge Hogs fan, and I think that my main worry with the Arkansas Razorbacks football team next year, we have a couple of decent receivers, but I feel like we're losing a lot of size this year on the edge, and I think that will make a big difference in the run game. But, and y'all can go into that, but a bigger worry for me would be our offensive line play. To me, yeah, we got the beefy boys up front, but man, I just have not, as an offensive lineman, I played left tackle, all the way to Division II, and so I know a little bit, and I always like watching the big boys up front, and I just really am kind of worried. I think we can get it right, during fall camp, and maybe it's just because it was spring, but man, our quarterback got to our quarterback a lot, and I know y'all kind of touched that, with Landon Rogers or Landon Jackson rather, and hopefully it's just our defense, really good. But man, we're playing the SEC, we're playing stud defensive linemen every week, so I know Coach Pittman, he's a lineman guru, but I just, I felt like we were really heading in a positive direction last year, and I feel like this year we're just, we took a big step back, and I think it might just because we moved so many people around, but I'm a little worried, we lost a lot of experience, but yeah, so if y'all could just touch on that, I'd appreciate it, and let y'all show, guys, y'all keep it up. Thank you.
All right, Chase, so let's tackle the receivers first. Yes, they're losing some size, some length, but Shane, I like what Arkansas added via the transfer portal, and another guy we're going to talk about here on the next question, Isa Satania, the second-year speed demon there. I would rather have, Shane, and I'm curious to know if you would agree or not, I would rather have quick receivers with top end speed than I would a bunch of tall receivers that can't separate. I mean, ideally you'd want big receivers that could do it all. But if you were going to tell me one or the other, and I'm not sitting here, mocking the Arkansas receivers, because they had two guys, Jaden Hazelwood and Matt Landers, both in the top 10 in receiving yards in the SEC last year. So very productive players, but not burners by any stretch of the imagination. I'd rather have those burners, explosive plays. That's how you kill. That's, Jalen Hyatt is who I think of. Luther Burden, players like that can bust the game wide open. Give me the fast receivers over the big, tall ones. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's funny, going back to the old NCAA games, when you're creating a wide receiver, it was, give me a 6'6", tall, slender guy that's fast as hell on the outside, It's almost like you needed that. But, in this day and age, you think of some of the greats to come through here. I mean, there's tons of possession receivers that have come through these universities that are just complete great game changers. You talked about Hyatt. I think about, what's his name? Swartz from Auburn, just one of those guys. Yeah. You get in the space. Debo Samuel, you just give him a little space and let him do something, let him cook. I like that. I'm more of a speed guy. I've kind of switched gears. I don't know if that's a pun.
Basically every Alabama receiver the last 5 years.
Brother, what you need, man, is you need dudes that run proper routes. I think that's the key with Arkansas is the chemistry, being on the same page, hands, not dropping the easy ones. I think that's what got them a lot. There was a lot of drive killers last year when these guys dropped the ball. So I just need somebody with sure hands and quick, make some moves. 5-7 yards, you do that every time, you're going to march all the way down the field and score a touchdown every single time, Mike. So yeah, it's not sexy. It's not, sometimes it's it's a little boring, but every now and then one of those guys pop one and it becomes a highlight reel, and next thing you know, you're up 2 scores. So give me the short, fast guys. I'll take that 1,000,000 times because they can take a 3-yard route to the house.
Right. And the second part of Chase's question, Shane, the offensive line. Offensive line coach Cody Kennedy is a younger guy. I think it's fair to say that unit did not live up to the hype last year, but the same thing basically we say every time, Shane, and same thing Chase says here. I mean, you got to have faith in Sam Pittman and in trusting to hire an offensive line coach. I mean, I don't know of a coach that I have more faith in to identify a coaching talent at the offensive line, but that is a question. I mean, there was legit concerns. Will Arkansas fire Cody Kennedy after the season? But I think the continuity is going to be good. They are bringing in a transfer from Florida, Josh Braun, who he was a touted recruit, but I don't like the fact that you're relying on transfer offensive linemen. That's a little bit of a red flag, just given that we are a developmental program. Sam Pittman and company should be finding them gems and developing those players in-house. Yeah. Not that they haven't. I mean, they just had a draft pick on the offensive line, one of their 2 draft picks, so it's not like they've been horrible, but that is a concern, and that's not something I think we'll get answered to, Shane, until we actually see this offense. But that's probably the biggest concern because we know what we got at quarterback, running back, some of these receivers we like. So, the offensive line, that's one of the biggest questions I have for the Razorbacks going into the season that, again, we just won't have an answer to till we see them on the field. You know what?
Yeah, and, the optimistic side of me always wanted to just say, well, your defense is really good, after that spring game. That's what you keep wanting to say, but, that little devil on your shoulder saying, man, if our offensive line struggles, because you think, what's one thing that KJ's not been able to do, and that's stay healthy through an entire season. Well, you can't do that with a banged-up offensive line either. So one injury, and then all of a sudden you're in trouble. And that what worries me is that was the theme when that portal was open, was how many more offensive line is Arkansas going to get? They're still shopping, man. They're still shopping. They're not set. So little worrisome, but I do like the development. I do like what Sam does with offensive line, and I'm definitely. maybe I'm not as optimistic on that side, but what they have improved on the other side of the ball, it kind of evens it out, in my opinion. So this is one of those things we're just going to have to see. We're gonna have some growing pains along the way, but then all of a sudden, you never know, that top 5 may get together and become an absolute unit. So I'm leaning a little bit more toward the optimistic side, Mike.
And I would say this one final thing, Shane, that I got on Arkansas, just a little nugget I picked up. But apparently Sam Pittman behind the scenes is telling people that he's very confident this is going to be his best team yet. Now, again, maybe this was not a press conference. I'm picking this up. That's where it's kind of coach speak. Where behind the scenes, these guys maybe tell a little bit more how they really feel. He's very confident in this team. So take that for what it's worth. But that's what I'm hearing behind the scenes. All right.
I mean, even on that note, when he comes out and he talks, I've never seen him. He's always a little bit reserved at times when he's talking about both sides of the ball, and it felt like after that spring, man, there was a little get up in his step. You know what I'm saying? It just I don't know. I'm reading into it, but it did seem a little different this year. So that tells me that things are okay. I mean, I'm just guessing. Who knows? He may not just drank a fifth of vodka before he came out there. And been like on cloud 9. But I'm just saying there was something in the air, and it just felt like I don't know, like they got a secret and they want to tell somebody.
Yep. All right, final question here, Shane, from cousin Too Tall from Raleigh, North Carolina. He's a big Gamecock.
Too Tall?
Yeah, that's what he said. His cousin Too Tall.
That's a cool name. Yeah. I'm the opposite now. Too fat, too bald. Oh, I got to step up my name game here.
Hey, yo, and hey, buddy. It's cousin Too Tall out here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I was just calling in. I just listened to the Mike Griffin interview, and it's actually really good, but I got a couple bones to pick with that real quick. And then I got a couple questions for y'all, or one question for y'all. Mike Griffin, he's obviously been around the SEC for a while because he knows exactly how to needle a fan base without actually saying anything directly bad about them. The way he talks about my South Carolina Gamecocks during that whole interview, he talks all around all the success that they've had over the past 2 decades with the coaches, Steve Spurrier, what Shane Beamer's done, who they knocked off, but he didn't ever directly address any of it. I just want to say, or remind him, who was the last SEC East team to beat Georgia? Oh, it was us, the Gamecocks, when we had literally the worst coach we've had probably in the past 50 years, and we still knocked them off in Georgia. That also would be Clemson. Tennessee last year, but that's neither here or there. Anyways, who are some freshman contributors from last year in the SEC that you expect to take the next step into their journey to superstardom in this league? They're going to become the big names in our conference for the next couple of years. The guys who are already in there, we've already seen them flash a little bit, maybe a little bigger, a little stronger, a little faster, know the playbook's a little bit better. Who are some true freshmen who had good years last year that you expect to be big contributors for their teams in the SEC for the next coming years and potentially break out into the national level? Love the podcast. Love both of y'all. Really appreciate what you do. Give me something to listen to while I'm at work. So thank you guys, and have a good one. Keep it up.
All right, so I edited that one down, Shane. I'll tell you what, Shane, I think we got so many listeners listening to you ramble that they call in and they ramble on here. But I really like this question from cousin Too Tall. Freshman players that we've already seen on the field that could become household names, impact players. And I got a lot of them, Shane, because I just knew when I get a question like this, I'm going to miss some. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
I've tried to name as many as I can so that I don't get bombarded tomorrow with, how in the hell did you forget this guy? How did you forget that guy? Oh, you son of a bitch. You hate this. You hate us. You know what I mean? So yeah. I'm doing this in tears, and I got a list about 35, 40 guys.
There's just 400 freshmen that last year, Yeah, tell me your list, Mike.
All right, I'm going to do it in tiers, like I said. And top tiers, Shane, 3 guys. These guys are probably already household names. So
okay.
I don't know. They may not qualify for exactly what Too Tall's asking us, but Harold Perkins, LSU.
no doubt.
I mean, he's already a star in my opinion. Ole Miss running back Quinshaw Junkins,
Oh yeah.
maybe the best running back in the country, but again, maybe not everybody knows who that is. They should. And then Georgia safety Malachi Starks, just a sensational player. When you're starting as a true freshman as a safety on a national champions, you are a hell of a player. So those
You're
are my
pretty good.
three. Yeah.
Yeah. No, those are going to be, those aren't just great players. Those are all Americans and
Right.
early draft picks. So yes, I like those three.
All right, and then I got several here, Shane. We've already seen them on the field. They've already made an impact, but maybe just not quite to the caliber of those three. And I think all these guys could be All-Americans if they reach their potential. Luther Burden, we got his chips up here for a reason. He's got to be on this list, right?
Absolutely. Again, it's surprising. Not a household name. Hasn't, I thought he was very productive last year, but at times I don't think he was the best wide receiver. He will be the best wide receiver on his team this year, and I think he'll be more of a focal piece.
And then one guy I'm very excited about, Shane, made some big-time plays last year for Texas A&M. Receiver Evan Stewart looked like one of the best players on the team in the spring game. I think, he's going to have a huge breakout season.
Heck yeah. Evan should have his own bag of chips too, brother. He will be a household name, brother.
And then another one from the Aggies, Shane, Walter Nolan, elite defensive lineman. They're stacked on that defensive line. I thought at times he looked like the best defensive lineman last season as a true freshman. So I can only imagine if he continues to progress, what kind of damage he could do for that Aggie wrecking crew defense down there.
Absolutely.
Now, I love this guy, Shane. Just because I've been getting so much blowback, I've been watching more of their football games to see, what am I missing here? Well, I'll tell you, not that, he didn't make an impact already, but sounds like he is taking it to another level, Shane. Florida running back Trevor Etienne. I know they got Johnson there, is also an outstanding player, but I think Etienne is going to separate himself to be, basically he's only in his second year, but I think after his junior year, he's probably off to the NFL because he's that good of a player.
It's funny. You're noticing more and more teams do some of these package running back deals. Just about all of them are doing it this year. But 10 years ago, if Etienne's on a team by himself, you're making a case that he could make a run for Heisman or leading rusher in the SEC. So, hell of a talent, just like his brother. They're different, but again, another player that you're going to see on Sunday. I think that's why he's going to be a household name, because I had his brother on my fantasy team last year. It's like there's not a lot of ETNs running around here, but the ones that are fucking good. I'm sorry, Mom, didn't mean to. Beer's kicking in.
All right, how about Alabama offensive lineman Tyler Booker, Shane? I think arguably you could make a case he was their best offensive lineman by the end of the season, just as a true freshman. So, again, we got to give some love to the big uglies up front. Tyler Booker, name to know there at Alabama.
Absolutely, just getting bigger. Just eating good and getting bigger, man.
And then this was for Too Tall, South Carolina's safety Nick Imawari. Stand out as a true freshman. Yeah, he's right. That's one thing about his question. He says, national media, why don't they ever mention these guys? And it's biased and they hate the Gamecocks and all that. I just think it's because they're ignorant, because they don't know who that is, because they don't watch enough South Carolina. That would be, I don't think everybody's out to get you. I really don't. I know everybody thinks that everybody is out to get him, but I just think it's their lack of knowledge, because he's an outstanding player.
It's funny too, is like, sometimes those DBs, when they don't get mentioned, that's because nobody's throwing toward them. It's like you're going the other way. So sometimes your best secondary is just not getting a lot of love because nobody wants to get it picked off.
Yep. All right, and then two final big uglies here, Shane. Georgia defensive lineman Michael Williams, outstanding player. He's going to be one of their best defensive linemen, I think, which is saying quite a bit for Georgia. And then LSU left tackle Will Campbell started as a true freshman. That's just incredible. Back for another year at left tackle. These are the guys I think could be All-Americans this season.
Absolutely.
Now, I got a couple other ones here, Shane. I don't know if these guys will quite be All-Americans, but I think they will be some of the best players on their team this season.
This is the tier you piss off people. This is the tier right here. You're like, wait a minute. You mean Jim ain't on there? Come on now. You saw him play.
Georgia tight end Oscar Delp. And the only reason maybe not higher, because they already got another tight end named Brock Bowers. You know what I mean? But Oscar Delp was so good they couldn't keep him off the field last year, and they had another guy named Darnell Washington. So, by God, Georgia's loaded at tight end once again.
Yeah, well, and they show that they can do a 2 tight end system. So it, right. I mean, it's like old school Patriots here, you know. Except none of them have criminal background history. Can we? That's too soon. Too soon. Sorry.
This was for you, Shane. How about Tennessee receiver Squirrel White, who he had a great rapport there with Joe Milton in the Orange Bowl. I think he is primed to be, the next breakout for this Tennessee offense.
Yeah, if that ain't a household name. Squirrel in Tennessee, come on now.
How about Kentucky receiver Barrion Brown, Shane?
Yeah.
Who, dynamic kick returner. I mean, one of the best in the country as a freshman. We need to get him the ball a heck of a lot more in this Kentucky offense, don't you think?
Mike, he is, I talked Debo earlier. This is just one of those human joysticks that you got to find ways, whether it's a little screen, whether it's in the backfield, whatever you got to do. Wildcat, doesn't matter. This kid needs the ball more, because when he does, he's freaking electric. Yeah. You talk about a household name. This kid he's that. He is going to be playing on Sundays, kick returning somewhere.
And you can even throw Dane Key in there, another freshman from last year, Shane. I think a more polished receiver than Barrion Brown, but not the kick returner blazer. So that's kind of why I just put Barrion Brown first, because those dynamic playmakers, those are the ones that really catch your eye first. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then LSU's got a hell of a tight end, Shane. Mason Taylor. We got to hear about his dad every time.
Is his dad is he that?
I can't stand that.
Oh,
But Mason
old
Taylor he's a hell of a player in his own right. We don't need to mention his dad here.
Absolutely.
How about Texas A&M's Connor Wigman, Shane? Made some big-time throws late in the season, beat the hell out of LSU in their final game. Connor Wigman makes that next step. Who knows? Maybe he's all SEC this season.
Well, shit, Mike, he's got all that talent around him, He's primed to have a hell of a season. And, I know we're hearing the rumbles with Max Johnson and everything, but I just think it's to push Connor, man. I think that's your dude, and I think he eats this year.
Yeah. And then last one on this tier, Shane, Kentucky defensive lineman Deion Walker. I love a defensive lineman, Shane, that wears number 0, and that's what we got Walker. I mean, he was a beast last year as a true freshman.
Yeah, that wasn't an option when I was in school, It's like once you hit the 3 hundo, you've got like 8 numbers you can choose, and none of them were 0.
All right, then final tier, Shay. These guys, I think, will be key contributors to their team next year, but maybe not quite, Too Tall says household All-American types. I don't think they'll be quite to that level in just their second season, maybe by their third or fourth years. But I love Alabama receiver Isaiah Bond. He really started to merge late in the year. I think he could be Alabama's, one of their top receivers. I keep hearing good things about Texas A&M defensive back Bryce Anderson. I think he's going to step up this year. We've mentioned many times, and I said we teased it earlier, Shane, Arkansas receiver Isaiah Satania with the speed. He scored in the spring game. He's a track star. I think he could be, maybe lead the Arkansas Razorbacks in receptions this year. So big-time player. Mississippi State receiver Xavion Thomas. He was a punt returner last year. Scored in the spring game. Dynamic playmaker. Can't wait to see what he looks like in this Kevin Barbay system. But I think he's going to be a big-time contributor. Georgia running back Branson Robinson. He was an elite recruit out of Mississippi. He got some carries, particularly late in the. Hell, everybody got carries against TCU. That's the last game I remember him playing.
That's right. I think I saw Kirby lugging a couple in there.
Tennessee linebacker Joshua Joseph, Shane, he was making some plays. He was a touted recruit. I think that's another guy you got to. Again, I'm telling you, Tennessee's got some talent on that defensive side that people are not paying attention to. South Carolina linebacker Stone Blanton, keep hearing great things about him. Vanderbilt receiver Jaden McGowan, he made some big-time plays. This may be too low for even to put him on that list. If he was anywhere else other than Vanderbilt, he probably would be a household name. And then last one I could think of, Shane, this one's for you. Tennessee running back Dylan Sampson, who we've seen him in spurts, big-time potential. Tennessee, I think, is going to run the hell out of the ball this year, so they're going to need Sampson back here, I think.
Get me excited, Mike. Hey, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, we're talking about freshmen that did some stuff last year that we're kind of getting pumped up. That's what this is, the sophomore season, starting to shine, household names. But, Mike, you don't have to do too many, but a quick maybe 3 or 4 in your head that you think could be freshmen that contribute this year. Is there maybe a name that you see contributing early and becoming a household name similar to Judkins or, Perkins? Is there any of those freshmen that you kind of got your eye on? Maybe you're not guaranteeing, but if the stars are aligned, this kid could really shine.
Yeah, just you're putting me on the spot here. One that I continue to hear great. This is Homer podcast apparently already, but Tennessee's running back / receiver Cam Seldon was making big time plays in the spring game. He's one. Got to put.
What about that Bama running back?
Justice Haynes.
Yeah,
he is so damn good, Shane. That was one of their strongest position groups, and they're saying he may start. And this was before he was on the team. He was, their strongest position group, arguably. So, yeah, Justin Haynes, you got to put him near the top of that list. How about all-name team, Shane? Ole Miss has got a linebacker, Suntarine Perkins, I believe is his name. And they're saying this kid, who's that guy that you could probably help me out with this, went to Penn State, got drafted by
LeVon Arrington?
No, Micah Parsons. They're saying he's another Micah Parsons. So just imagine if he's, again, let's not put that on him. He hasn't stepped foot on a field yet. But if he's a mini version of that as a freshman, Ole Miss will use him early and often. So keep an eye on him as well. And
Perkins running around, these subliminal messages. I'm going to be eating a chicken tender melt this evening.
Yeah, that's all I can think of at the top of my head. I'm sure the listeners are just screaming at their radio right now.
Well, let's ask them. If you think that you got a freshman on your team that nobody's aware of, because we see them, they come in maybe a little under the radar, maybe wasn't recruited as high as some of these other dudes, and you're like, man, I'm hearing great things at a camp, or maybe you saw something in the spring game, and you're like, man, this kid's going to be something special. When we put this show out on Twitter, tag us. Let us know who we should be looking at. Who are we forgetting here? And I did put Mike on the spot. Obviously, he likes to do his research, and I do no research. I just show up with a beer, So if you got one, tag us and let us know, because I'm curious who you think is going to be the freshman that makes the impact this year.
Yeah, or if you're watching on YouTube, comment, obviously. Shane, I got to shout out to the YouTube community. We are.
Did we hit 10 yet?
Not yet. That's what I was going to ask the audience. If you haven't already, please help us out. We're about to hit 10,000 subscribers. And, man, we have got a very engaging, fun community over there in the comments section. Shane, we put out that Tennessee Sleeping Giant. There must be 500 comments under that bad boy. Every post we put out on YouTube, we get dozens and dozens of comments, people cheering, people complaining, people calling us out, people calling everybody out. It's a wild time on the YouTube. I've enjoyed it.
See, I don't get on there. I listen to Rogan. He said, don't look at them comments, because I was like, man, they're going to be tearing me apart. Mike only sends me the good ones. Sometimes he'll give me kind of ones that are a little bit, but yeah, you got to be careful what you get on YouTube. But 10,000 guys, most of them are the ones that are listening right now, Mike. So I appreciate everybody taking the time to subscribe to that. But if you have it, man, just jump on there, hit the little subscribe button. I mean, it doesn't cost anything. Just click on it, and then you guys will be part of. You may be the 10,000th one. So that's awesome. We just started it really this year, so the fact it's grown that quick is really cool. And Mike does a lot of work. If you are so used to listening upon, man, give this a video shot. You know, you may not want to see my ugly mug, you know, but Mike puts in stats like when we talk about schedules, he's got that put up there. He's starting to put the tweets. I mean, he must spend hours on this. He ain't got a whole team. This is Mike working on it all night. So, I appreciate all the work you do, Mike.
I go to bed at 1 or 2 for a reason, Shane. I'm trying to pretty you up on video.
As soon as I get off here, I grab a fruit and roll up and hit hay, you know. What a rough day, Mike.
Well, buddy, that's all I got on this episode of the show. I appreciate you, as always, for showing up. I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Vols.